Joy Book Club is here again. Hopefully, we bring you joy, Joy. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. It's a pleasure coming your way. Now, today we have a collection of some 12 short stories, interesting short stories. And the title, guess, nearly all the men in Lagos are mad. Should we replace that with Accra? Okay, so the author is Damilare Kuku. And yes, there are some Kuku stories in here, but very interesting ones. All of them focusing on men. Welcome aboard the Joy Book Club. Let me quickly introduce my guests before I give you my literary fun fact. Paul on one end, Richard on the other. Paul, this is your second showing here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, Bernard, thank you for having me. I am Paul.
So the name is Benjamin? Right. And you are Paul?
Paul Honkani.
Right.
I am an author, a poet, a researcher, and a law student.
Okay, that's interesting. For you, Richard?
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Hello to everybody. My name is Richard Fiebo. I'm an actor.
Oh, you act?
Yes, I do.
I see.
Yes, an educator because I love to lead people out of ignorance. And then when I'm less busy, I vlog. You know, people blog, but I video. Blog, exactly. So that's what I do. So I'm very prominent on social media. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, that's an interesting mix in here today. Acting, some law, some education, and other bits in there. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to be considering myriad angles of this. But right before we get into the blurb and all that, let me give you my literary fun fact for the day. I'm going to take you to poetry and the world of William Shakespeare. Now, while everyone knows that Shakespeare is arguably the best-selling poet of all time, many people can't guess the number 2 and 3 spots correctly. Can you guess? Okay. So, according to research, in case you're wondering, the second best-selling poet is the Taoist sage, Lao Tzu. And the third place goes to Lebanese-American poet Khalil Gibran. And so in that order, unless things change, William Shakespeare, Lao Tzu, and Khalil Gibran. But let me come back into the studio now. Paul Honkani is here. Richard Fiebo is here. Can we take a quick look at the blurb of this book and then the author? Let's start with the blurb, Richard. Oh, I think Paul rather. Yes, you do the blurb.
Yes, Benjamin. So, Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad is a collection of 12 short stories featuring characters with unique voices and stories that represent the diverse class, gender, and ethnic melting pot that is Lagos. There's a story of a young lady who tries to find her Oyibo soulmate on the streets of Lagos. Another of a pastor's wife who defends her husband from an allegation of adultery. A wife takes a knife to her husband's penis. A night of lust between a rising musician and his Instagram buddy takes an unexpected turn. From Ikorodu to Yaba, Ilupeju to Victoria Island, the stories underscore with wit, humor, wisdom, and sensitivity the perils of trying to find lasting love and companionship in Africa's most notorious city that will prove universal and illuminating.
All right. And you look at that review there, witty and utterly enjoyable. At the heart of every story is a juicy scandal waiting to unfold. This is definitely the best of Lagos situationships, mind you, in 256 pages. That's by Sally Kenneth Dazi, best-selling author of Stranger in Lagos. But let's find out a bit about our author for today, Damilare Kuku.
Okay, so Damilare Kuku is a creative artist who has worked as a radio presenter, script writer, film producer, and a director. She holds both bachelor's and master's degrees in the arts and hopes to start a PhD, also in the arts someday, and maybe teach. Currently, she is best known as an actor in film, including The Setup and Chief Daddy. Television, including season 1 of Ebony Life's Castle and Castle and Africa Magic's Unbroken. And stage, including Kakadu, the musical, and Ewa. As a child, she was drawn to the enduring magic of books and saw writers as spellcasters. Naturally, she was entranced to become one. Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad is her first published book.
All right, and this is my introduction to Damilare Kuku, my very first reading of her work. All right, so let's get into how you appreciated this book. You're an actor. Here's someone who also acts, and she put together quite a bit in here.
Yeah.
Your underlying appreciation of the book is?
Let me start this way. Truth actually keeps people traumatized, but they are still interested in knowing the truth anyway. That is why we watch the news, you know. And this book actually exposes the reader, particularly women. I think her big audience is women. You know, she exposes women to the different kind of men, or like different categories of men that they are likely to meet in the city.
Right.
Epitomized in Lagos, the city of Lagos, or the state of Lagos, which is the economic hub of Nigeria.
A melting pot. Where
Exactly.
Practically
Everything. If you really want to understand Africa, if you want to know how African men are, then, you know, it is said, scholars say that you should go to Lagos in Nigeria. And so in Lagos, we meet varieties of men. We meet homosexuals, we meet the poor, we meet different kinds of men, you know, and I think when you lead us into the book properly,
we'll get into
yes,
all of
we'll
that.
get into all of that.
For
So,
Hongani,
yes.
one thing I found interesting though, we are all men on the set. Coincidentally, it wasn't planned. But I'm wondering, nearly all the men in Lagos are mad. Do you disagree somehow with some of what she writes and how she depicts men in this work? It's a collection of 12 short stories. Do you disagree with some depictions of men in there?
Honestly, I don't disagree with any.
Okay.
But, for the fact that I'm a man, I think she has exposed us so much.
She's exposed
in the book. There are certain things, at least, we try to keep as men, and Damilare Kuku has been able to dig it out. And in fact, the way she presents her story in the second person narrative, and there's a story she has been able to write it as though she's a male, being a female. That is very difficult.
She's entered the male psyche.
Yes, and she's been able to even, say things that happen in the male anatomy. So, for instance, men, we know sometimes when you fantasize over a lady and then you see her, you are likely to have an erection down there. And I don't know how Damilare Kuku was able to know all that.
Well, she has male friends too, and some experience.
Yes, so by and large, I don't disagree with any.
Let me come to you for characters in the book. Now, it's 12 short stories, so it may be a bit difficult, but who's your favorite character? I have one. I don't know about you guys. Who's your favorite character?
My favorite character is called Sid, and he's found in the story I Knew You.
Okay.
Yes, so Sid is half Arabic, half Nigerian, and he's written quite a very good, letter in the book. So he's my favorite character so far.
Okay. Let me come to you, Richard. Your favorite character is?
Yes, I have two favorite characters.
Okay. Who are they?
Iggy, in the story she titles The Jigo from Isale Eko. And then the second one is Edikan. I think it's a Nigerian word. I don't know if I'm getting the pronunciation right.
Yeah.
And she is portrayed in the story titled Catfish. I choose these two because they have similar traits. They live a very fast-paced life in Lagos, which is a very busy place. And so they tend to outsmart their friends or their contemporaries in order to survive. So it's just a matter of survival. So that is what informs, because in a way, we are all living in the city, and you must, one way or the other, do certain things to survive. And I find it very interesting because I'm exposed to certain things that, the Gigolo, Iggy here is a man, and then the other one, the Edikan, is a woman. But they seem to think alike. And so I am taking a bash at the things they do to survive, in the city of Lagos.
Right. And let's talk then about themes. For me, though, I have to get her name. That pastor's wife, who goes on the defensive, defending him after, I don't want to tell the full story yet, but he's caught cheating with a prostitute. She is my favorite character, just about the way she defends her husband, even when she knows that he's a philanderer. So she's my favorite character. But let's get into the themes. Which ones stood out for you briefly? I'll start with you this time, Richard.
A number of themes have been explored, in this book. There are themes of betrayal, double lives, hard truth, homosexuality, abortion, rape, strong desire for marriage, and so on. The one that I would vouch for, would like to talk about is that the women are always at the receiving end of the bad or the selfish decisions that the men in Lagos take. They seem to always be at the receiving end. For example, my favorite character, who is the gigolo from Isaleko, had to marry 3 women for his selfish decisions. The second woman, I think the first one that he marries, they call it an angle. The friend and narrator never mentions his name in the story, but he goes like, he asks the person he is telling a story to, presumably we the readers, what the angle to that one was, because they know the taste of this gentleman. By the end of the day, he realized that he only wanted an American visa. He wanted to travel to the US and stay there briefly and make some money and come back. And that was it. So the woman at the end of the day is heartbroken. And it continues. The second marriage also ended in a similar way.
So for him, it's just an angle.
It's just an angle. He always, and it has become...
There's always a catch.
There's always a catch,
right.
And that's it, So women always are at the receiving end of, the bad or the selfish decisions that men take.
Paul?
Yes, Benjamin, I want to start with your favorite character. She's called Pastor Mrs. Evelyn Oriade.
Yes.
Yes, and the theme I drove from that, and that also cuts across all the stories, is the strong support we have for our family and friends as an African people. So no matter what a family or a friend does, be it good or bad, we are willing to support to the latter. So, for instance, she was supporting her husband, who she knows definitely that very well is not far from doing such a thing.
She had caught him twice.
Yes, and you could see the level of communication skills she exhibited in all her letters, trying to support him. There's also another story that a mother was supporting the son and trying to, speak ill of a lady who is only interested in the son. So when you look at the stories, when you look across, you see that we have that strong support system as an African populace being exhibited.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into our book. Nearly all the men in Lagos are mad. And I was suggesting, can we replace Lagos with Accra? I don't know. So we start with Akakpo, one of my favorite stories. And I think Akakpo comes from the word cuckold. You could C-U-C-K-O-L-D, a man who is, effeminate or doesn't live up to being a man. One night, you will calmly put a knife to your husband's penis and promise to cut it off. It will scare him so much that the next day he will call his family members for a meeting in the house. He will not call your family members, but you will not care. You will not need them. Your husband's family will crowd the new apartment, a bedroom and a parlor called Self-Contained by Lagos agents, where you got 3 months ago. It will feel like they surround you. They will exclaim, sigh, frown, click their tongues, gnash their teeth, and repeat 1,000,000 times that you committed an abomination. His pot-bellied uncle, Buraimo, who always leers at your bosom, will point at you and say, Shabi, I told him not to marry you. I said, marry someone from your tribe. Igbo women are dangerous. He will say this while ogling your bosom. Well, I blame him for not handling you properly. Because if it was me who was handling you, he will beat his chest in anguish at this point. If it was me, you wouldn't have tried this nonsense. His elder sister, Azizat, will pretend to appeal to your shared womanhood. Isi is as a woman myself. I know men can be difficult, but what you have done is terrible. No woman has done this thing in our family. In fact, it is a disgrace to womanhood to want to cut your husband's member. Haba. I found it interesting the way the story started because this is a woman expressing herself and the current situation, but sort of in the third person, sort of someone else telling her story, almost as though the person was speaking to her. How did you find the story? The very first one in the book, and I like the progression because then you start seeing from the present into the past and then back into the present. I'll start with you, Paul.
Yes. So, as you rightfully said, from the word, the kak is just
Cuckold.
Cuckold, yes. So someone who is more or less a hoodlum, who has nothing doing, who cannot even make good of resources given. So this cuckold is called Lukman, and then the wife is Isi. So this is a very young couple that had a promising future. They thought they could, put things together and then make ends meet. Who knows, fortune might smile on them someday. But it appears upon all what Isi, the lady, does to, put body and soul together, the man is adamant. And the man finally...
Let's face it, he's lazy.
He's lazy.
He doesn't want to work.
Yes, he doesn't want, he's just, I think it's a psychological problem, but that's a story for another day. So this man, aside being lazy, has also succeeded in convincing Isi to befriend or to have it warm on a rich man just to have money and then to also acquire luxury. So Isi has now, Isi is now very livid because all what has happened, apparently it came out that she's had it warm outside, and then it's not all her fault. In fact, Lukman is the one who induced her into it.
Okay, so hold on right there. You've gone pretty deep into the story, that first story. But here's the thing. I want us to dig into the background of Lukman. Why there was a soldier who came and proposed to Isi when growing up and all of that. Why did she go for Lukman?
I think Lukman has a promising future. He's a graduate. And so I think women have the thing for being able, or they have the ability to foretell the future. When they see a young man, they're able to predict into the future. And that is the situation of
to gauge his prospects. Is this someone who can make good on his promises in the future?
Absolutely. And that is the case here. But things, reality caught up with them. You realize that they are both from, poor backgrounds. And so they tried to make ends meet. This lady, Isi herself, a graduate from the Polytechnic, ends up selling corn in front of the university,
right.
And then this gentleman, out of frustration, gives up on life. That's why I agree with Paul when he says that it became a psychological problem. So at the end of the day, he had to succumb to the pressure that was coming. He also wants to enjoy, the good taste of life. So
hold it right there. Let's. Isi had a number of men coming to her.
Yes.
Men who later also became something. You spoke about women being able to forecast, look in that crystal ball and see that, likely this man will. It doesn't always turn out right. And that is the case of Lukman. But she, per the story, she goes for him because he brings her sweets, okay? And not just that. And I'm talking of literal sweets. And then adds notes that she says are even sweeter. So, you know how some people say, women like to hear sweet things naturally and all of that. He will drop these, at her father's house and everything. And I think she felt that was good enough to go. But then the reality hit when they did get married, that life was more than sweet and sweet words. But where it gets worrying, as you read on, you would see that she gets... So let me maybe start reading from... Let me look at pages 18 to 20. The mother threatens her, but let me look at a bit of page 18. At home, you told Lukman about your conversation with Ehi. Now, Ehi, by the way, is a man who has seen her. He's a wealthy man. He likes her, but at the same time, he knows she's married. And he's trying to get work for Lukumon, who is her husband, though there's a catch. At home, you told Lukumon about your conversation with Ehi and asked for a copy of his CV. You were disappointed he didn't seem enthused. Okay, he said absent-mindedly. When will I get it? Isi, you can see that I'm about to get on a queue to use the toilet. I need to get there before Ngozi messes up the place with her smelly shit. After that, I'll queue to take a bath. I hope I don't go in after that useless Alao who uses 2 hours to bath. Okay, my husband, give it to me when you finish. I have heard. When 2 weeks passed and he hadn't given you the CV, you wrote one out for him, went to a business center to get it typed and printed, and gave it to Ehi. You didn't mind doing such things for Lukumon because generally, he was a good man to you, just a bit lazy. When you gave Ehi the CV, he studied it carefully. I think I can fix your husband in somewhere in my company. Then he looked intently at you. What about you, Isioma? What about me, how? Do you want a job? Not really, because it won't give me time to take care of Kitan. I want to take her to school and pick her up every day. So you're going to do this business forever? God forbid. You looked away. Then because you had grown too comfortable with him, you shared a plan you hadn't even told Lukumon. It goes on and on. She talked about saving to open a grocery store. But then he adds, how much does your dream cost? You took a long pause before you answered. I did a costing last month. Rent, furniture, and first stock came up to almost 800,000 naira. His face was impassive when he said, Isioma, you're a beautiful woman. I want to help you, but I am also human and selfish. So here is my offer. I will give your husband a job in the company, and I will give you 2 million naira. All I want in return is you spend this weekend alone with me in Osogbo. I'm going there for some business. Yes, this is a proposition. If you agree, you don't have to see me again after the weekend if you don't want to. If you reject my offer, I will understand, but I suggest you think about it first. So this is how it comes up. This man buys corn from her, and that is how it starts. But the man is also pretty smart. So he's been sort of buttering her up for this. He realizes he wants something, but she's married. So he's befriended her up to this point. But why is it that she is so upset with her husband? It's not his fault that this man came by. But why is she so upset with Lukumon?
Yes, so I think she's so upset because after her encounter with the man, Lukumon has refused to have it warm on her.
Even before that.
Okay.
Even before that. So she told him that this was what a man, I think you can find the page. She told him what was happening. And here's his reaction. Finally, he asked, after she had said a while. I mean, you would think that a normal, ordinary man would be boiling and all of that. Isn't that the man who gave Kitan $200? Yes, foolish rich man. Lukumon stood, grabbed a rumpled t-shirt from the clothes hanger and pulled it over his head. It was the sign he was going now to play draughts with some of the men in the neighborhood. He paused by the door. You are my woman. You will always be my woman, no matter what. You understand? Yes, you said, even though you were puzzled. This meant he practically didn't care much. And later, he would actually be asking her about, if you read on, about whether she had. So he was waiting for her to do it. And in fact, when she has done what she goes to do with this man, he takes part of the booty and uses it to buy a watch. I mean, he has no shame.
And his
before it comes to where you've got to.
And his brother also comes to steal the watch.
So in the end...
He has given up on life. When she announces his proposal to her, she expected some fire. The way she was boiling, she wanted a similar reaction from the husband. At least protect me because you are my man. Protect what you love. But she doesn't get a reaction from the husband. He rather encourages her to go ahead and then come home with some money or some sweets, And then at the end of the day, the abominable happens. So the point here is that I think He has just given up on life. And
Given up on life to the point where he's given up on his wife and he's willing to let his wife
Exactly,
sleep with
because
another man
yes.
so he can get some of the fineries of life. Really?
yes, and it is realistic. A lot, some people do this. They take they send their wives to go for sugar daddies or men who are better off than them in quotes, so that at least they can also get some comforts. And this is what we see happening here. And this is Lagos. This is the city where everybody is living a fast-paced life. He knows that, I'm sure he knows that the wife is very beautiful and she would definitely attract some man. So the impression I got is that, oh, lo and behold, this day has finally come. The day has arrived.
Our savior is here.
Yeah, not that one per se, but he was in expectation of it. That is why he walks out of the room and goes like, you are my woman, right? I'll always love you. That is the first sign. I was shocked, but I also had to understand him. I saw things from his perspective. So he was like, okay, so you go ahead. So when, the proposal finally came, I was not surprised at the end of the story when we learned that he sends the woman, over, he hands the woman over to the man literally, and then the abominable happens.
So, Ben, this would also add to the question you asked. So I want to just read
That's the final page. I know that's the punchline. You can go ahead and read.
Lukumon, please tell your family why you made me sleep with another man for money, but treated me like a leper when I returned. Explain why you refused to take the job the man offered you, but you insisted that I took the money, rent this house, and buy you that stupid watch. Tell them why you have refused to touch me, but you are sleeping with every girl in the neighborhood. Why did you say yesterday that you don't think Kaitan is your child? You will take a deep breath and look at your mother-in-law dead in the eye. One last thing, if Lukumon doesn't move out of this house, I will cut off his penis and use it for money rituals. Then you smile.
And that is the point where that marriage is going nowhere and she's likely going to end up with Ehi.
Yes.
And he's also willing to take the child, Kitan.
Yes.
So it makes it very easy for her to move on. But it also tells you about how laziness they say there's a portion of the Bible that talks about laziness, being lazy, and how soon enough poverty, like a thief, will pounce on you. But it also tells you about what people sometimes would be willing to do just to get by.
Yes.
Just to get by.
Right.
And what some others would do, we've heard of Yahoo Boys and Sakawe and stuff, where people would literally sacrifice family members just to enjoy wealth that they've not worked for. So there are so many dynamics in there. But before we go on our first break, I know you have your favorite stories in there. We can't possibly go through all 12 stories, but I know you have your favorite stories. So I'll start with you, Richard. Which is the first of your favorite stories you'd like us to look into?
The Gigolo from Isale Eko.
The Gigolo from Isale Eko.
It's a very crazy story.
Okay, so tell us about the story.
Okay, basically, so let me just put it in 2 or 3 sentences. 3 friends grew up together. One from a very rich background. The other one, who is the Gigolo, his name is Ignatius, shortens it to Iggy, got adopted, literally, by the mother of the richer friend. So he lives with them till they grow up. But you see that deep inside, he has a yearning for power and wealth. And he's very intelligent. And there's no, from his background, there's no way he could make money on his own. So he had to target rich women who are well-to-do in order to survive. So basically, that's it. So in the story, we see the narrator, who is the son of the rich woman who adopts Iggy, telling us that he is organizing, what do you call it?
A bachelor's night.
A bachelor's night for Iggy's 3rd wedding. And then he tells us the story, properly. And so you see that all through the story, he is a womanizer, a chronic womanizer who changes women,
who even gets married, who even converts to
Islam. And at a point, yes, that's very interesting. He changes his name from Ignatius to Iqbal.
Yeah. And his friend asked him, what the hell happened to Ignatius of Loyola and now you are Iqbal?
You see, and there are lots of them in society. Yeah, there are many. There are lots of, gigolos. In Ghana as well. I know quite a few.
I say it, I was going to ask, do you know any? The way you are saying it, and then so some people whom out of the economic situation or something else end up being gigolos.
Yes. And then, yeah, I think so. And then some, to me, I always believe that everything to the always a psychological aspect. There are some who are just psychology, they are well-to-do, but they find it, happy to to ride over women, to be opportunists.
Right.
Yes, so it plays on both sides.
It feeds also into the first story of Lukumon not wanting to work. Some people want riches quickly through the easiest possible means. I don't want to work hard. I want the Land Cruiser. But have you done work that befits the Land Cruiser or the Range Rover or the Jaguar or something? You get it.
That's the question.
Why don't you start small with a car that befits your status? No, they want to jump from A to Z in one fell swoop. You see a lot of those characters in the book, and here we see one of them being this gigolo. But for you, what is the bottom line of that story? What is the lesson in that?
Yes, so this gentleman is very smart. It means that it's a product, and there are customers for that product. It means that most of the gentlemen we see driving cars do not own those cars themselves. There are women who fund that. And you realize that there is a deep desire for women to also go for younger men or people like Iggy, because he has the vibe, the words, he's fun, he dresses well, he speaks well. And this book is very, very, what's the word? Very clear on, I've forgotten the word, I don't want to say explicit, but it sounds like it. Implicit. Okay. Is it implicit? No. It's very clear on the sexual scenes, the sexual descriptions. And this gentleman is very good at it. So they seek to get some kind of pleasure from it. So it means that there is market for it. And that is why these young men also tend to do it and then live the kind of life that they think they can get from women. Women who are industrious.
Well, we're still here reviewing Damilare Kuku's Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are, well, cuckoo, mad. And it's an interesting collection of short stories, another one I'm going to proffer for you, for your library. But right now, we're going to take a bit of a breather. We'll return on the Joy Book Club shortly. Do stay. Welcome back. It is the Joy Book Club with me, Benjamin Akakpo. Today I'm hosting Richard and Paul, and it's all about Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Yeah. If you've not read this book, you should grab a copy. Richard, Paul, here we are again. But before I come back to you, my word in action for today, I don't know whether you've ever heard of it, but it's deadpan. Deadpan. It's a verb. Literally dead and pan put together. D-E-A-D-P-A-N. And here's what it means. It's an adjective, actually, and it means looking or seeming serious when you are telling a joke. So you're telling a joke, but you're maintaining a poker face, looking very serious. A deadpan expression or voice. Let me give you some examples. That is an example I give you, but let me give you an example from the book. So I'll turn to page 20, and the Lukumon story, right?
Yeah.
It says, "How dare this man insult you? Sir, your tone was cold. Please don't buy anything from me again. I'm a married woman. My husband is man enough for me, and I'll never cheat on him. You've insulted both of us, and it's an offer, not an insult." He deadpanned. It's an offer, not an insult. He deadpanned. In other words, he was sort of joking, but he kept a straight face when saying it. And that's our word in action for the day, deadpan. Okay, so let's get into the rest of the review. I know there are two other stories that are your favorites, but let me come to Paul first. What's your first favorite story from the collection that you're going to leave us with?
My first favorite is The Beard Gang.
The Beard Gang?
Yes.
Somehow I feel that story was referring to the three of us because we are all wearing different kinds of beards.
Yes.
So tell us, what happens in that story? Is there any portion you'd like to read?
Yes. So let me give a bit of the story before I read a portion as well. So the Beard Gang is trying to tell the story of homosexuals, gay men who are in society, some who are very well-to-do, and yet they camouflage it by marrying women and some
to appear legit.
Certainly, and then some even have babies as well. So
when I say to appear legit, let me just say because of societal stigmas and all of that, so that they feel normal, that it is normalized. Oh, he has a, and I've heard many stories about some people, some very prominent who are, yeah, but others are also coming out, so it's in between. But go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So, so let me just read a portion, then I will marry it with what I was saying. So I'm taking it from page 187.
The start of the story.
Yes. Okay. So let me take it from the start. Your phone beeped at a few minutes past midnight. You glance at it. The message read, "He says he's leaving me. Help." It was from Flora. You said softly, irritated because you had asked that no one send a message past 10 p.m. But it was just like Flora, the twit to disobey simple instructions. It crossed your mind that she may have been distressed when she sent the message, but you remembered she was a drama queen, and it was more likely she meant it while lolling in a jacuzzi. So the story opens up with Flora's situation. Apparently, Flora is married to one Julius. Julius is very wealthy, very rich, well-to-do. And it has now come to play as though Julius is over with, Flora. He wants to break up, and then Flora isn't excited about it. So basically, these gay men have wives who have also formed a group, the wives of these gay people, and then they are called the Virtuous Ladies, or the Virtuous Wives Guild. Virtuous Wives Guild. And they are kind of a support group that come to sit and then plan on how to loot, on how to milk the rich gay husbands, because apparently it appears they are also in for the wealth and then not for.
But it's also because they've
love.
realized that their husbands have not married them because they really love them, that they have other lives, and so they are trying to, okay, so
also,
if that's what's going to happen, we might as well get what we also want. And in this case, it is the fine things of life.
Certainly, and it is also like they are also supporting their husbands, because it has been made apparent that they've made the husbands know that they know, and then even sometimes they try to link them out with other gay people. So you would notice that Flora's scare is because Julius has met another. Julius has met another who is not a lady but a man. Naturally, he is attracted to men, and that is his scare. Unbeknown to Flora, the one who linked the man to her husband is the friend she is complaining to.
Which makes it even more complicated because the one you are lamenting to, confiding in, is actually the one who knows your situation, who knows that your husband is gay, and ended up basically pimping another man
for him.
It also tells you about how sometimes you have to be careful whom you confide in, right?
Certainly. And Ben, one thing for me in the story is it goes to tell us that this thing about homosexuality, LGBTQ, it has been with us since the beginning. A lot of Ghanaian will come and tell you that gayism and then homosexuality is alien to us. You would notice that it has been with us for long, and then we have to just accept and then see how we can deal with it as a society. The reason why I'm saying this, I'm not advocating any homosexual disorder on television, but I'm only trying to say the book actually exposes that there are men of God, pastors who are gay, there are CEOs who are gay, teachers and all that.
People in politicians, people in very important, occupying very important
enviable positions in society. And there are ladies that, that know about it. If this is happening in Nigeria, it is certainly happening in Ghana as well. So it's high time we reorient ourselves in the way we look at this. So to me, that is what, catches me.
That was your takeaway?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And while I agree with that to a certain extent, for as long as possible, you read from the annals and historical records and others, and the Kojo Besia figure has always been around somewhere. Kojo Besia, the effeminate man who acts a certain way or who may be in certain things. I feel, though, that the resistance, as we see it now, per the bill and everything, didn't emerge until it appeared in some school settings and others where people felt now that their children, some doctrines or indoctrination was happening with their children, and they felt, wait a minute, you can do your stuff, but don't try to influence my kids or something, at least. So those are some of the frictions that have led us to where we are. But as to people of different orientations being with us, they've been with us for a long time, though it has not been normalized. But you cannot also fail to see the other side and why people are resistant to it. Yeah.
Right, so my final comments, or like my comment on this is to buttress what's the point you just made. The Kojo Besia is actually represented in this book, and he is Ife Dayo.
Yeah.
You know, he is a paragon of the Kojo Besias in Africa, or, you know, the Kojo Besias in
He
society.
epitomizes it.
Exactly. So he's an epitome of, you know, the Kojo Besias. And he is the one that Auntie Me, the woman who was taken aback, initially she didn't know her husband, a big man, was...
It was a shock.
Was gay. So immediately she finds out, she draws a master plan. And she organizes these women together and actually finances this man. This Ifedayo gentleman doesn't even have any direction in life. So she tells him to make Julius take him to the US, acquire an MBA, and get a better life for himself. And she actually extorts money from the complainant, the lady who is afraid of losing Julius. So at this point in the story, I am beginning to think that it is not only the men who are crazy or mad in Lagos, the women are equally mad.
Actually, it's a title, it's a catchy title, but if you look at it, every last story where there is a seemingly mad man, there is somewhere a seemingly mad woman. You can even say from the very start with Isioma.
Yes.
That she herself too was a bit crazy.
Yes, and
imagine threatening to cut off your husband's feet.
That's very crazy.
She also had a bit of the cray-cray.
And then the Catfish, your favorite.
Yes.
You see this lady, Eddie Khan.
Yes.
You see, she's also crazy.
She's a master planner.
Very wicked plan.
But is that not...
So,
I think we'll come there.
Yes.
Does that not also point to the fact, I have said that with the economic turbulence and everything happening, many people are walking around who are a bit crazy. Many people, because of the economic situation, because of life and its happenings, because of the cost of living, many people are, nowadays I see many more men especially, walking around mumbling to themselves. You know? My worry is that a lot of these are young men like us, walking around they are not on a phone, they don't have any earbuds in there. They're just mumbling, and it's scary.
It is. And that is what Damilare Kuku captures in the sentence, or a quote, on page 195, the first paragraph. She says, "Misery loves company, dear."
Yes,
you know,
I'm there exactly, right?
Yes, and that means that, so if misery loves company, then it means that madness also loves company. That is why all these crazy people, all these crazy men and women need friends to talk to confide in. But unfortunately, in the city, we are all busy. We are all living a fast life. Nobody really has time for anyone. And so they will end up talking to themselves, as Benjamin is saying.
And in the end, what follows from there? Why spend your money when you can spend his? So that also tends to be a line after which you realize, like with the story about the men who are gay, okay, so if we're going to play this, then let's play it well. Then I spend your money, and then it's tit for tat. You do what you do outside, and I blow the money.
And you see this ideology that ladies propagate, or I don't understand them. They just think all is about money. You get money from the man. If the man is
all ladies, let's
most ladies,
all ladies.
Okay, most ladies.
Some of them.
Most ladies, almost or nearly all.
I don't know the ones
nearly
all. I don't know the ones he's meeting, but
so they are like, anya bema, we ain't nom no. What you
nom
get?
Crazy.
So nearly all the ladies
they'll show you well. So we're still here reviewing Damilare Kuku's Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. If you're having fun, well, that's why we're here. This is the Joy Book Club with me, Benjamin Akakpo. But let's get to your second favorite story. We'll do his as well, and then come back to my last one, The Anointed Wife. Are you doing Catfish?
Yes, Catfish.
Okay.
Yes, Catfish.
Let's grill.
Catfish is basically a story about, excuse me to say, an unattractive woman called Edika, who cannot get a man by herself on social media. These days, if you want to hook up with somebody, you just get online and download the person. But she doesn't have the looks, she doesn't have the physique to attract a man. And so this vulnerable lady called Ivy, let me just read a portion of the story so that we can get a fair idea of how these people are portrayed.
And Damilare is pretty raw, some of the words she uses in there. Because right from the start, you see a word but we have to say it as it is, so go ahead. Right. 145, right?
Yes. Okay, the portion I actually want to read, I think it's not television friendly. Yes, but...
so you can use a milder word there. You can use the P word instead of the D word.
All right, so let's get to page...
Or you don't want to start from 145?
Let's
start from where
151.
151.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So
we're trying to euphemize.
Yes. At this point, the lady in question, the victim, the one who has been used as a catfish to get a musician, speaks. She says, "I have been a Unilag undergraduate for 6 years, thanks to spillovers, lecturers, and strikes. If not for my parents and the older brother sending me an allowance and my small side hustle, doing marketing for a mobile accessory company, I wouldn't even been able to afford the rent I split with Edikan. Times are hard, and they are even harder for so-called good girls. I'm tired of struggling, tired of sacrificing, and I'm ready to do what it takes to secure a stress-free future for myself. I had just revamped my image on Instagram and taken down all my old photos after my last relationship when Dawn sent me the first DM. And Dawn here is the music star, a new underground artist who is making waves, you know.
Don Okoro.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, so things ended badly between my ex and I. Let's just say I was a naive good girl then. All right, so my point is that Edikan takes advantage of this lady and grooms her into becoming a socialite. Right. But she does not have the...
She's a good girl.
She's a good girl, you know, and so she's not up to the task. So this lady, Edikan, virtually puts words into her mouth. She even tells her what to put in the text messages, you know, that she sends to this music guy. The gentleman, on the other hand, is also, you know, has been warned by his religious mother. He does secular music, but the mother is a very prayerful Christian who wants him to stay away from girls when he got his first music tour. Right. So he wants him to abstain from sex, you know, for 2 months. So according to him, for 2 months, he hasn't, you know, had his way with women. And then this lady shows a very attractive girl who is the pawn being used by Edikan to get to the musician, you know, and then she falls for He falls
falls
for
for
her,
her.
and then they start having a conversation. And finally, there's a pari passu going on. I'll meet you up so that, I take you out to the nicest place, and then we can enjoy our moment ourselves. But it turns out very badly. They go out to the nightclub. The lady is not really up to the task. But the master planner is waiting coolly. And so, these girls live in the same apartment, live in the same room, but in separate bedrooms. Like, they live in the same apartment, but in separate bedrooms. So they go into the bedroom, and you realize that the first lady, the pawn, the narrator, is not a bad girl. So she couldn't keep her word. So this gentleman, out of frustration, calls his ex, tries to get in touch with his ex-girlfriend, and was on his way out. And then upon coming into the living room, he meets Edikan, who is hotly dressed, waiting for him. So he falls into the trap. She leads him into the bedroom, and then, they enjoy, their moment. And in the course of that, the other lady who fell asleep comes to catch them red-handed, smashing away, and it was crazy, But she doesn't care, because at the end of the day, she has got a star, and she's happy with it. So that's the craziness about it. So at this point, I realized that, I come back to my former point, or my previous point, the point I keep making, that it is not only the men who are crazy or mad in Lagos, the women are equally mad in Lagos. Just that they have not been, represented massively as the men are. So
it's a woman writing, and she's focusing on both sides, but she's also putting out there. It's almost as though it were some sort of guidebook for a woman. Pick it up, know how some men are, or a large portion of men are, and know how to play your cards, or flee when need be. But it also tells you about the circumstances of life, especially in Africa, across the continent, and how vulnerable people are because of their economic status, lack of education, and others. And in this sense, like you say, she's a good girl, but look at where she ends up. And if care is not taken, she could end in a very bad way. What then would be your takeaway from the story, before I come to Paul?
Just be who you are.
Be who you are.
Yes.
Don't pretend to be anything else.
Exactly. There's a lot of fake life on social media, and so things are not what they are. There is more than meets the eye.
And that's exactly what came to mind when you mentioned socialite. Today, socialite has come to mean a certain, and you see some people in our society, I'm a socialite, and doing this and doing that. Well, let's just hope it works out for you. But Paul, any reactions before we get into your final story, your final pick?
Yes, Ben, as you said earlier, sometimes the economic conditions makes the individual evolve into a particular, person. It rewires your thinking. Some years ago, I used not to actually be very friendly towards our Nigerian brothers and sisters, because I thought...
Hey, you had something against them?
Yeah, I thought it was like prejudice. It was a stereotype I had for them. I thought they were criminals. But as...
Well, thank God you've been delivered of that.
Yes.
Because I have some pretty good, very good friends from them.
Yes, and I've grown to understand that it is the environment that makes them, behave the way they are, because you need to adjust to be able to survive in such a habitat. So, the economic hardships has made the women go berserk as well.
Interesting choice of words. But let's get into your next story. Which one are we looking at this time?
Yes, so I like the one titled I Knew You.
Okay, so that's the penultimate story.
Yes, so I Knew You is just about a gentleman who has written his words out, his voice out, and he's kind of lamenting. So this gentleman is called Sid. He's of Arabic, or would I say Arabian and half Nigerian descent, and then someone who hasn't had a family to call his own.
Right.
So from 16 years of age, he had been on his own and finally joined a band. So during one of their tours, a young lady who was a medical doctor saw him and then fell in love, fell for him. Apparently, they've been in this relationship for long, and the man doesn't want to speak the marriage language. So that has caused them their marriage, because the lady, her family, society were all anticipating their marriage ceremony. And according to Sid, who is the gentleman, he has this phobia because he hasn't had the opportunity to live with a dad. He doesn't even know how it is like to see someone is engaged in practical marriage. So that is a phobia he has, which phobia also exists in many, individuals in Ghana and in the diaspora. I know a few as well, a few colleagues who have that phobia of marriage. I don't know how it is coined in the Queen's Balance, but that is the story of Sid. And you see, I see this to be very funny, like the reason for their breakup. I think the lady by name Layo, who is a medical doctor, is not serious at all, because if you would just abandon your marriage simply because someone has refused to organize a marriage ceremony, then I think you are not, you're...
But without the marriage ceremony, what is it?
Without the marriage ceremony, we as society may not call it marriage. We may say they are cohabitating, but what you expect from a marriage, they have kids, they have a nice home, you have, Sid is loving. He's not the arrogant type. He doesn't...
Yes, but he's not married her.
Yes. And for someone, you see, I have always been of the notion that marriage is just a societal norm. It's something society has, dictated to us. It is just a way to formalize sex between a man and a woman. Aside that, there's nothing.
But
to
that
it.
formalization has been institutionalized, whether biblically or in the Quran or in society generally. Even culturally, you must go through the right processes. So.
Yes, certainly. And also, that to buttress the point you've raised, Sid could have also just at least overcome his fear, his phobia, and then try it, because unless you go to the beehive, you will never know what is there. Yeah. So this also goes to culminate some people are just naturally, unable to take risks. They are cowards when it comes to having a strong mental fortitude to enter a particular, venture.
So we're pressed for time, but interesting. Yes, there are some people who will. I know people who have been in relationships for a decade, 6 years, and the rest. And they're like, Charlie, people get out to 6 years without anyway. I will end with the anointed wife. That will be our final story. I found the story so interesting because here is a woman. Let me just read a portion from page 41. Do you think it is easy to be a pastor's wife? How can you know what it means to be the partner of a man with a divine calling, made of flesh but instructed to lead with a spirit? Any ordinary wife has their work cut out for them in loving their husbands, in serving them for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. But a pastor's wife has to help her husband maintain his holy anointing, and to do so with an invisible hand. I didn't do it, mommy. Do you believe me? How long has it been since I became the mummy of our organization, the mother in our marriage? That's one thing I find interesting. Those couples who are married and call them each other mommy and daddy. I've never got that bad. But this is the last reading I'll do. This pastor has been accused of sleeping with a prostitute, and the prostitute is outing him. Now, this is the first message his wife puts on social media, because the war is being fought on social media. My dear hopefuls, it is with a heavy heart that I write to you. As you go about your daily activities, please do not let the devil take hold of your mind with fake news. 2 weeks ago, an article was released accusing pastor of sleeping with a young lady on the 19th of June 2020. The young lady claims that my husband, our daddy in the Lord, picked her up from Festac, took her to a hotel close by to have inappropriate relations with her. She says she is coming forward because she saw daddy on television preaching, and she didn't think that it was right for an adulterer to be the one to guide people on their spiritual journeys. It goes on and on. But this one I found very interesting. We've had some cases where there have been some supposed slay queens taking on some people, members of our society. Let me not go there. this story was so interesting because in the end, guess what? The anointed pastor's wife did know twice she had caught him, but she didn't go to the point of letting him know she had caught him. And he had been with prostitutes. Why was she putting up this appearance in public? And in the end, when this prostitute keeps going, this lady of the night keeps going on and on about it was real, to the point of wanting to publish a book, then she uses a certain line. He talks about anointing you in bed when he sleeps with her. And once she mentions that phrase, then she realizes, the man actually did this with her. I found it so interesting, and how sometimes we resist the truth. Quick thoughts on that, and it's a wrap. I'll start with you, Richard.
Let me go straight to it this way by saying that, let me talk about the
So
motto.
we have limited time, but
the motto of the church motto, which is work for God and work for yourself.
Right.
So you realize that this is strictly business.
Yeah.
So I am forced to believe that it is not strictly a church or a religious, it's just a society. Because when you read the story, when you delve into the story properly, you realize that they were all working, they were all employees of big organizations.
Right.
But at a point, the woman had to advise the man to use his charisma to form a church because her father is a pastor, so that they can survive on that. And my final comment on this is that damage control does not always control the damage, and so we should be honest to ourselves.
Okay.
She has been consistent in writing letters or
writing on social
press
media.
releases. But the way she addresses them, the readers, has been inconsistent. The first one, she addresses them as hopefuls, and then the subsequent one, she addresses them as brothers and sisters, and so on and so forth. So it means that, and at the end of the day, she ends up complicating the whole matter. So she should have kept quiet, but her desperation has made everything.
Maybe the anointed wife made it worse. Final thoughts, final comments.
Yes, just to buttress on what Richard said, sometimes the way we handle damage controls end up damaging us.
Sometimes silence is better.
Yes, so you see, when in her first presser, she used hopefuls. It turned out that the people were offended by that word. And then the next one, she used another term, and they were still offended. So sometimes silence is always key. And this also comes to buttress my point that in the African society, we are always supportive of our own, whether they do good or bad. So you see, this is a husband. She knows very well that he has the penchant for that. He has a very high libido for women of the night, and she supports him, in any way. So it is something that we are born into, unfortunately, as Africans, but like Richard said, sometimes it's always, not even all the times, it's always good we stick to the facts. We say the truth, and then we let good lead. In order for all the men and ladies in Ghana and Lagos not to be mad again.
Well, we use that advisedly. I'm going to wrap now with our little triad as we go. Our reading quote, figure of speech, and then a poem. I'll start with a reading quote. It's something from Marcus Tullius Cicero, who says, "A room without books is like a body without a soul. A room without books is like a body without a soul." Marcus Tullius Cicero says so. My figure of speech for you today is auxesis. It's spelled A-U-X-E-S-I-S. What is that about? You can read more about it, but it's the enhancement of importance beyond how important it is. Here's an example. I fell over and was wounded. You fell over, but maybe it wasn't as great as to wound, but it's a sort of exaggeration. Again, if you stay late, you'll be a hero. And here's the last one. She is good, he is better, they are best. Whenever you use such figurative expressions, you are basically using auxesis, which is the enhancement of importance. And now I'll wrap with our poem for the day. It's something from Kojo Bafour's Voices in My Head, and it's taken from page 41 and 42. The title is Crime Scene. I return to the scene of the crime and find her heart broken, bleeding rivers of blood red, a soul you left for dead. Spirit tattered, threads of life shattered. Her lips scream without sound. Her mind runs from itself in agony. My mother, your sister, our daughter. The face in the mirror calls you man as you creep through night streets in search of your prey. Living dead, you overdose on the haze that buried Jimmy Purple. Do you sleep at night? Submerged in the nightmares of your decadent life, what goes through your mind? As you violently spread thighs, wielding a diseased weapon without thought for tomorrow. Your calloused hands and deadly phallus destroy dreams. Your cold heart and glazed mind suck hope from gentle souls, stained by the foul stench of your existence. I return to the scene of the crime, and I am ashamed to call you my kind. I am love, and you are hate. I am joy, and you are pain. I am hope, and you are desperation. Your deeds label us insane, when in truth, we are not the same. We are not the same. And that is Crime Scene from Kojo Bafo's collection, Voices in My Head. And that's how we cap off our review today of Damilare Kuku's Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Hopefully not in Accra. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. This has been another installment of the Joy Book Club. Today I was with Richard Fiabo and Paul Honkani. Thank you for joining.